And now, live from the studios of Freedom's Phoenix, Ernest Hancock.
Ethan Lee Vito's in the house. We'll get to him at the top of the hour. But I want to play, I promise, a pinky swear. I'm going to play this 60 Minutes clip, Meredith Whitney. And this is, 15 years after we knew. How did we know? Because they're bad. They're bad. Here we go. Let's go ahead and play this thing, and then we'll talk about it.
By now, just about everyone in the country is aware of the federal deficit problem. But you should know that there is another financial crisis looming involving state and local governments. It's gotten much less attention because each state has a slightly different story. But in the 2 years since the Great Recession wrecked their economies and shriveled their income, the states have collectively spent nearly $500 billion more than they've collected in taxes, and there is $1 trillion hole in their public pension funds. The states have been getting by on billions of dollars in federal stimulus funds, but the day of reckoning is at hand. The debt crisis is already making Wall Street nervous, and some believe that it could derail the recovery, cost 1 million public employees their jobs, and require another big bailout package that no one in Washington wants to talk about.
The story will continue in a moment.
The biggest names in
and then they're going to do their little commercial thing here. Interview. And we'll get right to it because I'm telling you, this is something that I want to make sure we all know about. And it's inevitable, so it's important.
The alarming thing about the state issue is the level of complacency.
Meredith Whitney is one of the most respected financial analysts on Wall Street and one of the most influential women in American business. She made her reputation by warning that the big banks were in big trouble long before the 2008 collapse. Now she's warning about a financial meltdown in state and local governments.
It has tentacles as wide as anything I've seen. I think next to housing, this is the single most important issue in the United States and certainly the largest threat to the U.S. economy.
Why aren't people paying attention?
Because they don't pay attention until they have to.
Whitney says it's time to start.
The money that we take in, that's all the money we can spend.
California, which faces a $19 billion budget deficit next year, has a credit rating approaching junk status. It now spends more money on public employee pensions than it does on the state university system, which had to increase tuition by 32%. Arizona is so desperate it sold off the state capitol, Supreme Court building, and legislative chambers to a group of investors, and now leases the buildings from their new owner. The state also eliminated Medicaid funding for most organ transplants. Then there's New Jersey. It had the highest taxes in the country, a $10 billion deficit, and a depressed economy when first-year Governor Chris Christie took office. But after looking at the books, he decided to walk away from a long-planned and much-needed project with New York and the federal government to build a rail tunnel into Manhattan. It would have helped the economy and given employment to 6,000 construction workers.
Lots of jobs.
Yeah. I'd cancel it. Listen, the bottom line is, I don't have the money. And you know what? I can't pay people for those jobs if I don't have the money to pay them. Where am I getting the money? I don't have it. I literally don't have it.
Is this going on all over the country?
Yes. Of course it is. It's not like you can avoid it forever, because it's here now. And we all know it's here. And the federal government doesn't have the money to paper over it anymore either for the states. The day of reckoning has arrived. That's it. And it's going to arrive everywhere. And time may vary a little bit depending upon which state you're in, but it's coming.
And nowhere has the reckoning been as bad as it is in Illinois, a state that spends twice as much as it collects in taxes and is unable to pay its bills.
This is the state of affairs in Illinois. It's not pretty.
Dan Hines is the comptroller of the state of Illinois, its paymaster. He currently has about $5 billion in outstanding bills in his office and not enough money in the state's coffers to pay them. He says they're 6 months behind.
How many people do you have clamoring for money?
It's fair to say that there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people waiting to be paid by the state.
So how are these people getting by if they're not getting paid by the state?
Well, that's the tragedy. People borrow money. They borrow in order to, get by until the state pays them.
They're subsidizing the state. They're giving the state a float.
Exactly.
And who do you owe that money to?
Pretty much anybody who has any interaction with state government, we owe money to.
That would include everyone from the University of Illinois, which is owed $400 million, to small businessmen like Meyer Shaw, who owns a pharmacy in Chicago and has been waiting months for $200,000 in Medicaid payments. Then there are the 2,000 not-for-profit organizations that are owed $1 billion by the state. Lutheran Services has been around since 1867 and provides critical services to 70,000 people, mostly the elderly, the disabled, and the mentally ill. The state owed them $9 million just before Thanksgiving, and they nearly had to close up shop.
How long can you go on like this?
Well, we wonder that too, because we really don't know.
Reverend Denver Bittner is the president of Lutheran Services. He says they were forced to tap their entire line of credit and all their cash reserves before the state would finally pay them as a hardship case.
It has to be that you've sold off all of your assets, you have borrowed from everybody you can borrow from, and then we'll think about it.
Even though they owe you the money?
Even though they owe us the money.
The first words out of my mouth are usually an apology because they have been, put in this situation that, really is unacceptable, and there's very little I can do or say other than apologize.
It's not just the social safety net that Comptroller Dan Hines has to worry about. There have been Illinois legislators evicted from their offices because the state didn't pay their rent, and stories about state troopers being turned away from gas stations because the owners refused to take their state credit cards.
The state's a deadbeat.
Yeah, I mean, the state of Illinois is known as a deadbeat state. This is a reputation that has taken us years to earn, and we've reached, the heights of, I think, becoming the worst in the country.
Not all of the problems that Illinois and other states are facing right now can be traced to the Great Recession, but the precipitous drop in tax revenues did expose decades of financial irresponsibility, reckless spending, unrealistic benefit packages for public employees, and the use of political gimmicks to cover up hidden deficits. It's forcing state governors and the public to confront some harsh realities.
This is different, isn't it?
It is very different. And the reason it's different is because the only choices left are choices that people previously have said were politically impossible, that you couldn't do. You couldn't cut K-12 education funding. You couldn't do those things. You couldn't talk about pension and benefit reform for the public sector unions, that these were third rails of politics. We are now left with no alternatives.
Just the third rail.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to grab it and go and let the chips fall where they may. This money's got to come from someplace.
In some ways, Governor Chris Christie is the political canary in the coal mine of the state fiscal crisis. He slashed New Jersey's budget by 26%, including $1 billion in cuts to education, forcing the layoffs of thousands of teachers. He got rid of 1,300 state workers and drastically reduced funding to New Jersey's cities, counties, and villages, which have their own financial problems. And he's still facing another $10 billion deficit next year. Long term, the situation is much, much worse.
Okay, now we'll go ahead and finish that when we come back, but I want to tell you a little story. There is a young woman, her name is Nina. She was one of the original Love-Volutionaries, and she was dating one of the lead singer and the head of a band called Property 6. Now, if you were in the Love-Volution, they did some videos in support of Dr. Paul. Some of the videos that Dr. Paul had the band members in it. They did, they're a going concern here. They play a lot of the clubs. Well, they got so active, them and their followers, their groupies or whatever, would come down. They put a lot of signs up and such. She was going to school and became, last year, a teacher. She got her degree. She went and became a teacher. It got so bad in the junior high that she's in now that she complained. She has, their class sizes is over 46, 47 kids. And if you complain about it, boom, you're out. Yeah, you're not stable enough. You're not supporting the system. Boom. Well, she's going to be doing some activism because she knows how. Oh, they stepped into it because some teacher complained about what was being, wanted everybody to know what's going on. This is just the beginning, folks. It's going to get a lot worse. We'll finish this up. And what might be the solution? We got an agorist, Ethan. We're going to be talking about it. You guys don't go away. We're going to have all kinds of fun today. You guys stay right there. We'll be right back here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com here in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's a nice and a toasty. We'll be right back.